Well, we are joined now by someone who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways. NASCAR Hall of Famer Mark Martin. Mark, thanks so much for taking the time and joining so last minute.
Well, thank you. It's good to be on with you.
There's some big news that broke, obviously, around the NASCAR world. Austin Dillon will lose playoff eligibility. He'll keep the win. This news just recently dropping from NASCAR. I wanted to first just get what's your instant reaction from this now that the news has dropped?
Well, I think it's fair. I think that's a fair. I don't envy NASCAR at all. Really, honestly, they were in a put in a position of no win, and I think that's I think their decision is fair, but it's difficult. I mean, it's really a difficult situation, and I felt bad for NASCAR to be put in that situation. Really,
the move itself was one that's still being heavily debated. I know you tweeted and said, good grief. Austin Dillon on the Dale Jr. Download earlier this week mentioned that you sent him a text after the race saying spectacular. Is this a case of don't hate the player, hate the game in terms of the move Austin Dillon made at Richmond?
To some degree, yes, I would agree with that. I can come at this from a couple different angles. The first angle is straight up fan. And I was sitting watching the race by myself and I laughed out loud. I mean, it was so outrageous that I laughed. It takes balls to do what Austin Dillon did. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it is largely due to the format. I mean, this all started, I'm a purist. I'm a racer. I'm a purist. I grew up in an era where respect and honor and dignity were everything, and that was paramount. And the racers taught me to race with that, and they raced me back with that, and it served me well. And I tried to always do the right thing by my fans and everything else. It's a different day and age. I terribly disagreed with the double file restart when they started double file restarts. Why did they do that? They did that to take the advantage away from the guy who was going to win the race. Okay? I mean, flat out. So they did that to appease the fans and television, and the green-white checkered as well. I'm not a fan, I was not a fan of that when it came. But it's done to appease television and the masses. Now, there's some that don't like it, and there's some that do, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm kind of I'm a fan. I still love NASCAR, and I still watch it. But it is dang sure different than it was when I was growing up. And I'm not going to bash it because it's what we have now. So I really, I just really think that this is the day and age that we're in. You're going to have a lot of bump and runs and contact. It's all generated by, winner takes all, win and you're in, nothing else much matters. And in Austin Dillon's case, it really didn't, except that, NASCAR deemed that he stepped over the line, but he didn't know that when he made the move. And I view this as a big event in our sport. Not quite as big as the Hail Melon by Chastain, but it's pretty huge. I mean, it's generated a lot of attention, and there's a lot of stir. And when you get stir, even negative stir is stir. When you had the switch from Darrell Waltrip being the good, the bad guy, to being the good guy, and Rusty the switch to being the bad guy, the roars and the boos, they weren't all bad for the sport. It gets their blood, pumping. So this has been a shot in the arm in one way, but in the other way, it's kind of a black eye as well. But gosh, we're going racing this weekend, and there'll be something else to talk about. But it's big news right now.
You talked about like this is a different NASCAR than you knew growing up. How did we get to this point? How did we evolve to the move that Austin made on Sunday night?
I really think that it started around 2000 when we went from, let's say, ESPN. In the 90s, the sport was just booming. It was insanely popular, and ESPN. We were a sport, and ESPN was broadcasting our sport. And around 2000, the big money from the TV contracts, the networks. You had to appease that big, huge money that we got. I wish we'd never got all that, honestly. I almost wish that the sport was still a Southeast small thing, because all it did was cause the teams, or allow the teams to spend more money. Now it's ridiculously impossible to be a part of it. In the 80s, my peers, like Bob Seneker and Dave Watson, they built their own cup car. And Rick Knott actually did too, and he brought it down to Daytona, and he got killed in it. But that can happen now, and so it has changed a lot. There's been a lot of money come into it, but and it's given a lot of crew guys an opportunity to work, to be on teams, NASCAR teams that weren't before. But in a lot of ways, when you bring in that big money, you have to provide entertainment. And that's what Sunday night was entertaining to me. Race-wise, I don't approve of that, okay? But we are where we are, and I do get excited seeing exciting racing, and I get, my blood pumping when somebody bumping runs, my guy. That's the thing, is it's all subjective. When you have bump and run or all this stuff going on a racetrack, running somebody high, if it's your guy that gets the short end of the stick, you're mad as heck. Mm-hmm. But if your guy's giving it, you ain't so mad. So it's just, I feel like we're in the entertainment business now instead of the sport.
Dale talked about this week, I'm sure you've had your fair, run-ins with Mike Helton. He was the authority figure, right, in the NASCAR garages, and he was looking for that authority figure now in the NASCAR garage, and a move like this is something he thinks is something that NASCAR needs to kind of lay the law down. Did NASCAR make the right move in terms of establishing authority amongst the drivers, amongst the teams, that, hey, we are the letter of the law here?
I still think that that somebody needs to get the driver's attention and say, that's just a small. It's going to be bigger. We ain't going to tolerate that. There's a line between rubbing and even a bump and run and what happened Saturday night. Mike, I'll tell you a little story, because Junior is exactly right. One night, I was always chasing a championship, always, never could win one. One night I was running Richmond, and I needed a caution really bad. I'd never done it before, but I needed a caution really bad. And I pulled a piece of Robar padding loose and threw it out the window. And, they saw it, and they called me to the trailer after the race. And, I'm a straight up guy, so Mike closed the door, said, what happened? And I said, I needed a caution real bad. And I threw a Robar pad out. And I'm going to tell you, I thought he was going to beat my ass. He scared me. He was so mad, and it scared me so bad. I mean, I was actually scared for my safety. He was mad. And I thought, well, heck, if you're honest about it, you'll get credit for that. But, so Junior's right. These guys need to have more than the threat that, you know, we're going to fine you, or we're going to take your eligibility for the chase away, or the playoffs away, or whatever. You need to have somebody you're scared of. That worked. I mean, Mike Hilton had that iron fist, and I'm not sure. I'm not around now. I don't go to many races, and I'm not sure who has that, or if there is someone in that position.
Joey Logano was also penalized $50,000 for spinning his tires on pit road with people around. Is it time we no longer do interviews on the front straightaway, keep people off the pit road after the race? Is it time to create a better safety culture in NASCAR moving forward?
Well, I don't think it's time to quit having interviews on the front straightaway. I didn't like that at first, but I've gotten used to it, and I like it. I like the raw emotion from right out of the race car. So I think I think we need to keep safety in mind. I think that kind of fine is for Joey is actually, in my eyes, it was a safety thing, and I get it completely. But it's pretty excessive, and so. The good thing about having an excessive penalty for something like that is it deters it in the future. Honestly, I felt like he, a $50,000 fine for what he did. He shouldn't have done it. He should have known better. Joey should have known better. But if you were in Joey's head, you knew that you had control of it. You knew. Joey knew he wasn't going to run over somebody. Mm-hmm. But everybody else doesn't know that. And if you go at that with an excessive penalty, like what I think that was, it deters it. We don't need that. We definitely don't need anybody ever getting hurt. We don't need the sport needs no contact after the race is over. That should not happen. That should always be taken seriously. As soon as that race is over, there should be no contact on the racetrack. Certainly no contact on pit road as well. We got to keep these guys safe. NASCAR's done a good job in the past, 20 years. Since we introduced the speed limit on pit road, done a great job. And you can't be having temper tantrums on pit road after the race. And so I think they made a good call there. I think it'll be very, very much a deterrent.
I want to put you in the shoes of Austin Dillon and RCR. Now that you've received this news, do you appeal?
Well, I don't, but that's just me. I don't know what they will do. I never liked lawsuits. There might be a good reason why they would appeal it. That they think that they might be able to get that overturned. I am going to dig deep and try to prove everyone wrong by winning one of these next 3 races. Dude, they had that race won. They won that race the hard way before the final caution. They they run up in the top 5, top 6 all race long. They drove to the lead cleanly, by the way, drove to the lead and had that thing in a bag. So, my deal would be focus, man. Let's do it in one of these next 3 races, and we'll be in legit. But, I can't say what they'll do.
Mark, I want to thank you for taking the time. I got one more question for you. We talk about establishing where the line is. NASCAR said what Austin Dillon did was over the line. Where was the line when you were racing in terms of these types of instances?
Well, I don't know. We had very few of them. I think about Bristol and Terry Labonte and Earnhardt, and we didn't have a penalty then. But in our etiquette, that was over the line. However, do not forget Sonoma when they took the win away from Ricky Rudd. That's kind of weird. When you look at that one instance, it seemed, as compared to how it's handled every other time since then, that was really harsh. but they did it. And they had the opportunity to make that call Sunday night. I'm kind of a believer in the winner is the winner, and we need to know who won. But so they would have had to make that call like within a minute or two or three. They did it at Sonoma. We're in a day and age when the cars are all the stuff, even, double file restarts, green, white checkers, taking horsepower away. All these things are designed to make a show for entertainment. You can't get away from these guys. I mean, Joey in one lap got as big a lead as you can expect to get, and it still wasn't enough. So these guys are going to run over each other. That's not going to change. The culture has changed. You see it. I watch short track racing all the time. You see it from these kids that are teenagers all the way up. It's going to be that way. I wish that it was done with more integrity. Bump and run is okay. The reason I never did bump and run, because my luck would be that the guy would wreck and it would kill him. Okay, and that's severe, but that's my kind of luck. I don't believe I was a good enough driver to rub somebody out of the way like that. But these guys are really good at it, and if you can move a guy, I say that's fair game. If you try to move a guy and he wrecks, I don't like that. That's over the line for me.
I want to follow up on that real quick. Do you think this penalty will change the integrity, will make the line clearer for the current Cup Series field on what's right and what's wrong? Do you think this will help improve how we race each other in terms of aggression?
I think this is kind of a one-off situation. You're going to be rarely have someone that was in that exact situation as Austin. I mean, he had to race in the bag. Then, he got beat on the restart. And, he was facing a horrible season and a chance to get in the playoffs. He planned to hit the 22 and go win the race. It all went wrong once he hit the 22, and wound up catching up Denny. So, it's a double problem for Austin, because, he would have gotten by with that if Denny hadn't entered the picture. So I just don't think the opportunity is going to come around, and I hope it doesn't. I don't think it's good for our sport long term to be having, real rough finishes. Racing side by side, grinding, a little bumper tag, that's today's racing. But we don't want to see these guys get wrecked by, racing for the lead. That's not racing.
Mark, I appreciate both the time and insight. It's always great hearing from a legend like yourself.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.